want you to picture two apartments. Same city, same neighbourhood, similar rent. The first apartment belongs to someone earning $95,000 a year. Walk inside and you'll find a 75-inch television on the wall, a leather sectional that cost $4,000, a kitchen full of appliances, most still in their original boxes, closets overflowing with clothes, many with the tags still attached, a spare bedroom converted into storage for items that haven't been touched in years. This person checks their bank account with a knot in their stomach. They are 2 missed paychecks away from crisis. The second apartment belongs to someone earning $52,000 a year. Walk inside and you'll notice space. A modest couch, a reasonably sized TV, a kitchen with exactly the tools that get used regularly, a closet with clothes that actually get worn. This person checks their bank account with calm confidence. They have 18 months of expenses saved and invest 20% of every paycheck. Same neighbourhood. The person earning almost half as much has nearly 10 times the financial security. So what is actually going on here?
This person isn't bad with money in any obvious way. They don't gamble, they don't have expensive addictions, they haven't made any single catastrophic financial decision. They just gradually accumulated a lifestyle that requires every single dollar they earn to maintain. Every raise got absorbed by a new upgrade, every bonus disappeared into something shiny, the income kept growing, and the expenses kept matching it, dollar for dollar. And now they're trapped, earning great money, feeling perpetually broke, unable to understand why. This is one of the most common financial patterns in America, and almost nobody talks about it honestly.
This person discovered something that completely changed their financial life. They learned that owning less doesn't mean living worse. It means living deliberately. And deliberate living creates financial margin that most high earners never experience. They have 18 months of expenses saved. They invest 20% of every paycheck automatically. They sleep well. They have options. They could lose their job tomorrow and be fined for a year and a half. Today, I'm going to walk you through the minimalist money rules that separate people who always have money from people who never do, regardless of income. These aren't about deprivation. They're about understanding that every object you own has ongoing costs you've probably never calculated.
My name is Jude, and I spend a lot of time thinking about the behavioural and psychological side of money. Not just the math, but why smart people with good incomes still end up financially stuck. If that's something you want to understand better, subscribe and hit the like button if this ends up being useful. Let's get into the rules.
Let me start with a concept that will permanently reframe how you think about every purchase you make. Everything you own costs money twice. The first cost is obvious. It's the purchase price, the number on the receipt. But there's a second cost that most people completely ignore, and it's often larger than the first. The second cost includes storage, maintenance, mental energy, and opportunity cost. And when you add all of those up, many possessions end up costing more to own than they cost to buy. The purchase price is just the entry fee. The ongoing costs continue for as long as you keep the item.
Here's a concrete example. That treadmill you bought requires space in your home. Space costs money, roughly $30 to $50 per square foot annually in most urban areas. A treadmill takes up about 20 square feet when you account for clearance space. That's $600 to $1,000 per year in implicit rent you're paying to store exercise equipment that probably hangs clothes most days. You didn't just pay for the treadmill. You've been paying for it every single month since you bought it, even if you haven't touched it in 2 years.
Or take a boat. The one sitting in the driveway needs winterization, cleaning, registration, insurance, and occasional repairs. The industry rule of thumb is that annual maintenance costs run about 10% of the boat's value. A $30,000 boat costs $3,000 per year just to own, even if you never take it on the water. I'm not done yet. The second cost includes mental energy.
Every item you own occupies a small slice of your attention. It needs to be cleaned, organised, maintained, insured, worried about, and eventually disposed of. Researchers have found that visual clutter literally increases cortisol levels and reduces the brain's ability to focus. Your stuff is stressing you out in ways you can't consciously perceive.
And the second cost includes opportunity cost. Every dollar locked up in possessions is a dollar not invested. That $15,000 home gym setup could have been $15,000 in index funds, growing to $50,000 or more over 15 years. You didn't just buy a home gym. You bought a home gym instead of future financial freedom. Minimalists understand this intuitively. They're not avoiding possessions because they hate nice things. They're avoiding possessions because they've done the full math and decided most things simply aren't worth the complete cost.
Rule 1. Calculate cost per use before any purchase. Before buying anything, estimate how many times you'll realistically use it. Divide the total cost by that number. This gives you the cost per use, which is the only honest measure of value. A $200 jacket worn twice costs $100 per wear. A $400 jacket worn 200 times costs $2 per wear. The more expensive jacket is actually the cheaper one in any meaningful sense. This calculation destroys most impulse purchases immediately. That $300 kitchen gadget you'll use twice a year costs $150 per use. That's an absurdly expensive way to accomplish whatever task it performs. Meanwhile, a $30 tool you use weekly costs less than 60 cents per use in year 1. The math cuts through marketing, emotion, and social pressure and reveals what actually makes financial sense versus what just feels appealing in the moment. A $2,000 mattress used every night for 10 years costs about 55 cents per use. That is extraordinary value for something affecting your health and energy every single day. A $1,500 espresso machine used daily for 5 years costs less than $1 per use and likely saves money compared to daily coffee shop visits. The question isn't what does this cost? The question is what does each use of this item cost me? That single reframe changes how you evaluate almost every purchase. Rule 2. Apply the replacement test to everything you already own. Walk through your home and look at each item you possess. Ask yourself one simple question. If this item disappeared today, would I spend money to replace it? Be honest. Would you actually go buy another fondue set? Would you replace that bread maker collecting dust in the cabinet? Would you repurchase the clothes you haven't worn in 18 months? For most items in most people's homes, the honest answer is no. They exist through inertia, not intention. They were impulse purchases, gifts you felt obligated to keep, or remnants of past phases you've moved beyond. These items have negative value. They cost you space, mental energy, and maintenance without providing corresponding benefit. Every hour spent organising, cleaning around, or thinking about items you would never actually replace is an hour stolen from activities that genuinely matter to you. Minimalists ruthlessly eliminate items that fail the replacement test. They sell what has value, donate what someone else could use, and discard what serves nobody. The process feels uncomfortable at first, and then deeply liberating once it's done. Rooms feel larger. Decisions feel simpler. Cleaning takes half the time. You know where everything is because everything remaining actually has a purpose. Rule 3. Never upgrade out of boredom. There is a pattern I see constantly among people who earn good incomes but have nothing to show for it. They upgrade perfectly functional items simply because they're bored with them, or because newer versions exist. Their television works perfectly, but the new model has slightly better contrast. Their phone operates flawlessly, but the new release has a marginally improved camera. Their car runs reliably, but the new model has updated styling. Their furniture serves its purpose, but they've grown tired of looking at it. These upgrades feel like improvements, They are actually wealth destruction disguised as progress.
Minimalists maintain a strict policy. Never replace something that functions properly. The phone that makes calls, sends messages, and runs apps does not need replacement because a newer phone exists. The car that reliably gets you where you're going does not need replacement because your neighbour bought something shinier. This policy saves enormous sums over a lifetime. The average American replaces their phone every 2 to 3 years, often while the previous phone works perfectly. Over 30 years, that pattern alone costs $30,000 to $50,000 in unnecessary purchases. Applied across all categories where upgrade culture operates, the lifetime waste can easily exceed $200,000. Minimalists define functional clearly. An item remains functional until it genuinely cannot perform its required task. Boredom is not failure. Desire for novelty is not failure. The existence of a newer version is not failure. Rule 4. Create friction for spending and ease for saving. Human behaviour follows the path of least resistance. If spending is easy and saving is difficult, you will spend. If saving is easy and spending is difficult, you will save. Minimalists engineer their environment to make the right choice the default choice. Spending friction looks like removing stored credit card numbers from online retailers, requiring a 24-hour waiting period before any non-essential purchase, deleting shopping apps from your phone, unsubscribing from promotional emails, only going to stores when you have a specific intended purchase.
Saving ease looks like automatic transfers to investment accounts on payday before you ever see the money, keeping only a small amount in your easily accessible checking account, treating savings like a fixed expense rather than an afterthought. These structural changes matter far more than willpower. Willpower depletes throughout the day. Environment is constant. Someone relying on willpower to avoid impulse purchases will eventually fail when they're tired, stressed, or emotional. Someone who deleted the shopping apps and removed their credit card numbers simply cannot impulse buy in that moment. The 24-hour waiting rule alone eliminates roughly 70% of impulse purchases. Most desires for objects fade completely within a day if not acted upon immediately.
Rule 5. Count your possessions regularly. This sounds obsessive until you actually do it. Counting forces awareness. Awareness prevents accumulation. Pick a category. Count how many items you own in that category. Write it down. The numbers almost always shock people who've never examined their consumption patterns objectively. How many shirts do you own? Most people guess low and discover they have 3 or 4 times what they estimated. How many kitchen gadgets? How many pairs of shoes? How many books you'll never read again? How many items in your junk drawer? The count itself changes behaviour. Once you know you own 47 shirts, buying another one feels different. You're not adding a shirt, you're bringing your collection to 48. The absurdity becomes visible.
Minimalists track key categories over time. They set maximum thresholds, perhaps 30 items of clothing total, perhaps 15 books at any given time, perhaps a one-in, one-out policy where any new purchase requires removing something existing. These constraints prevent lifestyle creep. Without intentional limits, possessions expand to fill all available space. With limits, each addition requires a conscious decision about what it's replacing. That friction alone dramatically reduces unnecessary acquisition.
Rule 6. Rent or borrow before you buy. Most items people purchase get used intensively for a short period and then rarely afterward. The excitement of newness fades. The initial enthusiasm decreases. The item joins the collection of things owned but seldom touched. Minimalists test this pattern by renting or borrowing before committing to ownership. Want to get into camping? Rent equipment for the first few trips. Want to try woodworking? Borrow tools or use a makerspace. Want a kayak? Rent several times before purchasing. This approach accomplishes 2 things. First, it reveals whether the enthusiasm is genuine or temporary. Many interests fade after initial exploration. Better to discover this while renting than after purchasing equipment that collects dust forever. Second, it clarifies exactly what you need. When you eventually purchase, you buy precisely the right thing rather than guessing. Closets and garages across America contain dusty remnants of abandoned hobbies. Ski equipment from the phase when they thought they'd ski regularly, photography gear from when they imagined becoming serious photographers, music equipment from bands that played exactly 2 shows. Minimalists avoid becoming museums of past enthusiasm. They test interests before investing. They maintain the flexibility to explore without the burden of ownership. The money not spent on abandoned hobbies doesn't disappear. It compounds in their investment accounts instead.
Rule 7. Understand the lifestyle multiplier effect. Every major possession you own connects to other possessions. A boat requires a trailer, a hitch-equipped vehicle, storage fees, maintenance supplies, safety equipment, and appropriate clothing. A purchase that seems singular actually triggers a cascade of supporting purchases. This is the lifestyle multiplier. Major purchases multiply into entire ecosystems of related expenses. The true cost is never just the item itself. A home gym requires flooring, mirrors, storage solutions, and often renovations to make the space suitable. A pool requires chemical supplies, cleaning equipment, covers, furniture, and maintenance tools. A motorcycle requires gear, storage, and often a truck or trailer for transportation.
Minimalists calculate the full ecosystem cost before any major purchase. They know that a $5,000 purchase might actually represent $8,000 or $12,000 when all the multiplier expenses are included over several years. This full accounting often transforms what seemed like a reasonable purchase into something clearly excessive. And the multiplier works powerfully in reverse. Eliminating one major possession often eliminates an entire category of related expenses. Selling the boat means no more storage fees, insurance, registration, maintenance, or towing costs. The savings extend far beyond the item's sale value. Every major possession you're considering, calculate the ecosystem, not just the sticker price. Rule 8. Define enough before you start earning more. Here's the trap that catches high earners constantly. They never define what enough looks like, so they keep purchasing more without ever arriving at satisfaction. Their income increases, so they upgrade their lifestyle. The new lifestyle becomes normal, so they need another income increase to feel progress. This cycle continues indefinitely. People earning $300,000 feel just as financially stressed as people earning $80,000 because their expectations and expenses expanded alongside their income. The number changed, the feeling didn't. Minimalists break this cycle by defining enough in advance. They decide what kind of home is sufficient, what kind of car genuinely meets their needs, what level of material comfort constitutes real satisfaction. Then they earn towards that target rather than constantly moving the goalpost. This might mean deciding that a £350,000 home is enough, even if you could eventually afford £600,000. It might mean deciding a £30,000 car meets your needs even when colleagues drive £70,000 vehicles. It might mean deciding your current wardrobe is genuinely sufficient even as your income grows. Defining enough creates a finish line. Without it, you're running an endless race where lifestyle expansion always outpaces income growth. The person who defined enough at £60,000 of annual spending and then started earning £150,000 builds wealth at an extraordinary rate. That £90,000 gap between income and enough flows directly to financial freedom. Meanwhile, someone earning the same £150,000 but constantly redefining enough upward saves almost nothing and wonders why.
Rule 9. Measure wealth by optionality, not accumulation. The conventional view of wealth measures what you have: houses, cars, visible markers of success. Minimalists measure wealth differently. They measure it by what they can choose. Can you leave a job that's destroying your mental health? Can you take 6 months off to handle a family emergency? Can you move to a new city for a relationship or opportunity? Can you start a business without guaranteed income? Can you retire before 65? Can you say no to things that pay well but compromise your values? These options represent true wealth. They're only available to people who've built substantial margin between their income and their expenses.
The person earning $200,000 but spending $195,000 has almost no optionality. They are chained to their income requirement. One job loss, one health crisis, one economic downturn, and they're in serious trouble. The person earning $80,000 but spending $45,000 has extraordinary optionality. They can absorb disruptions, take risks, and make choices based on genuine preference rather than financial necessity. Minimalists understand that optionality requires liquid resources far more than physical possessions. The money tied up in a car you don't really need is money that cannot buy your freedom when you need it most. Every purchase isn't just exchanging money for an object, it's trading optionality for possession. Is this item worth reducing your ability to make free choices about your life?
Rule 10. Practice cyclical decluttering rather than annual purging. Most people who attempt minimalism do a massive purge, feel great for a few weeks, and then gradually accumulate right back to their starting point. The purge feels productive. The slow reaccumulation goes unnoticed. Within 2 years, they're right back where they started. Minimalists avoid this through cyclical decluttering. Instead of annual massive purges, they perform small, regular reviews, a weekly glance at incoming items, a monthly evaluation of one category, a quarterly assessment of overall trends. This cyclical approach catches accumulation early, before it rebuilds to overwhelming levels. Removing 3 items per week is sustainable and manageable. Removing 300 items once a year feels overwhelming and often just gets postponed indefinitely.
Let's come back to those 2 apartments. The person earning $95,000 with nothing to show for it didn't fail because of bad luck or bad income. They failed because they never calculated the second cost of anything they owned. They upgraded out of boredom constantly. They never defined enough. They measured their success by accumulation rather than optionality. The person earning $52,000 with 18 months of savings and 20% invested every paycheck didn't succeed because of some secret formula. They succeeded because they applied these principles deliberately. They understood the real cost of ownership. They defined enough and stopped there. They built systems that made saving automatic and spending difficult. Same city, same neighborhood, completely different financial reality. The difference was never the income. The cyclical approach also builds something invaluable: awareness. When you evaluate your possessions regularly, you start noticing patterns. You see which categories tend to grow fastest. You identify which emotional states trigger acquisition, stress buying, boredom shopping, comparison purchases. You recognize which marketing tactics work on you specifically. This awareness enables prevention rather than just treatment. You stop the accumulation before it requires another massive purge. You build a relationship with your possessions that is intentional rather than accidental. And here's what's worth understanding about all 10 of these rules. None of them are about deprivation. Every one of them is about intentionality. Owning what serves your life on purpose, rather than accumulating by default.
Here's exactly what to do with everything we covered today. This week, walk through your home with the replacement test. Identify 10 items you would not replace if they disappeared. Sell, donate, or discard them. Notice what it actually feels like to remove things you don't want. This month, implement the 24-hour rule for all non-essential purchases. Track how many purchase desires survive the waiting period versus how many completely evaporate. The data will show you how much of your spending is impulsive rather than intentional. This quarter, count your possessions in 3 categories that tend to accumulate. Clothing, kitchen items, and entertainment or media are good starting points. Set a maximum threshold for each based on what you actually use. Then hold that line. You don't have to overhaul your entire life this week. You just have to start seeing your possessions honestly. The real definition of wealth isn't the size of your TV or the brand of your car. It's the gap between what you earn and what you need. The bigger that gap, the more free you are. Minimalism isn't about living with less for the sake of it. It's about recognizing that most of the stuff we accumulate doesn't actually add to our lives. It just adds to our costs. And every dollar that goes to maintaining things you don't really need is a dollar that can't buy you freedom, options, or time. The person in apartment B isn't deprived. They're free. And that's the thing most people earning $95,000 a year never figure out. Until they do.
If this gave you a new way to think about your possessions and your money, hit that like button and subscribe. Every week I break down the real behavioral and mathematical reasons behind why some people build wealth and others don't, regardless of income. Next video, we are going deep on car payments, specifically how people are convincing themselves they can afford $900 a month car payments, and what that decision is actually costing them over the course of their financial lives. The math is genuinely eye-opening. I'll see you there.